everyone. Welcome to the Rachel's Gift class today. I want to thank you so much for being here. I know this is a difficult topic and one that we don't necessarily look forward to talking about. However, I hope that you feel when you leave here today that you will have more tools and more knowledge to successfully care for your patients who are experiencing a loss. The entire objective of the class today is to help you feel a little bit more comfortable. I know these situations are never 100% comfortable, but to help you feel a little bit more comfortable and definitely a lot more confident when you are walking into that patient's room to care for them. In women's services, we have three types of patients. We have our live healthy birth patients. We have our patients who give birth to a baby that needs a little TLC and has to go to the NICU. And then we have our patients that are experiencing loss. Historically, we've had a lot of education on the first two types of patients, but not so much on the third. So that's the gap that we're going to try to fill for you today. I'd like to give you a little bit of background about why we do what we do. In 2006, I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter Rachel when we were involved in a head-on car collision. I was life flighted to our trauma unit here in Atlanta where I live at Grady, and we had a heartbeat when we first arrived, but about an hour after we had gotten there, her heartbeat faded and she passed away. At that point, all of the focus went to my physical injuries and assessing what all they needed to do. And so there's a lot that I don't remember from my time in the hospital. A lot of it's very hazy, and I'm sure there's things I don't remember at all. But there are a lot of things that I remember very distinctly and very clearly about my time in the hospital. After I came home, I had about 2 years of surgeries and physical therapy, as again, all of the focus was on my physical recovery. I was at the same time very much struggling emotionally and mentally with the loss of my daughter and didn't feel like I was headed down a very good path. I started reaching out to other moms over the internet to just try to find some guidance on how to navigate this difficult journey that I was on, that I felt very isolated in. So as I was talking to moms, I found two things that were very common, literally no matter where in the world the mom was that I was talking to. The first was that sense of avoidance and isolation, either by their friends and family or by the hospital staff while they were in the hospital, or a lot of times a combination of both. And we'll learn later on in the class why in the hospital they tend to feel that way and some things that we can do to try to help with that. The other thing that came up in every single conversation were the amount of regrets that moms had over decisions made or not made, or things done or not done at the time of their loss. And these are things, of course, that they couldn't go back and change. Regrets really complicate and elongate the grieving process. And so there's some things that we can do while they're in the hospital to really help them have the least amount of regrets as possible. We're going to talk about a mom's top 3 regrets that she has, and you will find that they are all things that happen during their time in the hospital, and this just gives you an amazing opportunity to make such a difference in a mom's grieving process. So while all of this was going on, and while I was having these conversations and finding out that these were very common struggles with all moms that I talked to, I started doing some research to try to find an organization to join that was already doing something to try to help in this area. I could find a lot of really great programs out there for after the mom comes home from the hospital, a lot of great books, counseling, memorial items, support groups, all kinds of things, but I really couldn't find what I felt there needed to be in place in the hospital during the time of the loss, when all of those decisions and hard things that you have to walk through in a very narrow window of time. I really couldn't find anything that was out there already established. So that's where Rachel's Gift was born out of. In the beginning, we were a volunteer organization. Local hospitals would call us when they had a loss, and we would travel there, and we would have trained volunteers that would go and walk a parent through those first 3 hours and help them make some of their decisions. However, what we learned very quickly is that the nurses were very interested in the conversations we were having and the things we were doing. That, however, is their patient, and they wanted to have those tools and knowledge to be able to take care of their patient while they were there. So we did some research into the nursing education that happens, and we found that there was very little to no education on infant bereavement in the nursing colleges and universities. In fact, what training was out there, we found, was basically to give the patient their time, space, and privacy, which is the opposite of what you as the patient actually need. You're lost, you're scared, you have no idea what your options are. You don't need time, space, and privacy. You need a knowledgeable guide through the process. So that's where your course comes from today. So just to give you a little background on where your information comes from, because I think it's very important that you have confidence in the information that you're getting. We got together a panel of just under 40 people that worked on the information for about 2 years that you're about to receive today. It's also always evolving as new information becomes available and new research is done, so the program is always being added to or changed a little bit, but the basics of the information you're about to receive today came out of that panel. Now, who was on that panel? We had some amazing people on there. So most of them were medical professionals just like you sitting in the room today that had been taking care of lost patients for several years, had lots of knowledge and just things that they had already put into practice and learned from, and had some great input on things that they found to work really well when they're taking care of their lost patients. The other people we had on the panel is we had some counselors, especially that focused on grief and trauma counseling, that gave their input. And then we had a lot of moms and dads and even a couple grandparents on the panel as well that gave the information from the patient's perspective on what either was done really well, what was done really wrong, or what maybe they wish they had had. And so we put all of that together, and therefore I hope that you find that this training is very practical and something that you can take right back to the floor, even if you're going on shift tonight and you have a lost patient that you find is very easy to just put right into your care of those patients. I want to thank you for being here. I want to impress upon you again that you just have such an opportunity to make a huge difference with these patients. When we talk about patient autonomy, yes, we do want to respect patients' wishes, but this type of patient is a little different because the rest of your patients that are coming in to give birth have had time to do research and to make decisions and to plan on how they want the birth and the few hours following to go. But most of these patients, these lost patients that you will have, they have not had that same opportunity. Most of them are finding out at the last minute. They don't have time to do the research on all of the options that are available to them. And honestly, with the shock that they are in, they are too traumatized to logically sit down and do that and make those decisions. We ask that you take the time to use some of these techniques that we're going to show you today to try to help your patient make some better decisions for themselves so they don't have those regrets. This information does come from years of research and discovery, and the techniques that are taught in this class were established by medical and psychological professionals, with the techniques presented to many patients that had been in these situations for approval. There is a wealth of information on our website as well, and I encourage you to go there and look at all of the different support and even all of the different options that we have that you can offer to your patient while they're in the hospital. All of that information can be found at rachelsgift.org. With all of that being said, when the class is over today, if you ever have any questions or comments or feedback or just want to reach out, you can reach me at LoriBeth@rachelsgift.org, and let's get started.